Welcome to my new mini-series, Write Up. Hi, I am Elysium and welcome to my channel. So I'm starting a new mini-series and this is to complement the work that we're doing already on Scribble. What you're going to see over the next few weeks is a series of videos where I get to interview writers, people who are members of Scribble and people who have exciting stories to tell and wonderful work to share. Now, my first guest to kick off this mini-series is Andrew. Okay, so you're a regular on the channel, Andrew, but thank you so much for coming and volunteering to be the first guest on this new mini-series. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for inviting me to be a guinea pig. I mean, first guest.
It is a little bit, isn't it? Your passion is writing, it has to be said, and you are a very talented writer. As anybody who has watched the recent party, we had a party for World Poetry Day, and you shared some of your work on there. You do occasionally share your stuff on Twitter, and there's also some of your work in Scribble.
Yeah, I think well, thank you first of all for your very kind words. I'm not sure that very talented, but thank you. I tend to share my work more into Scribble than I do into Twitter these days. I feel more of a loyalty and more of a camaraderie with my fellow members of Scribble, so I prefer to put most of my work there these days. I do occasionally put something on Twitter, but it is literally only every sort of few weeks now.
It is a different experience, isn't it? How can you explain how it's different putting your work onto Twitter to putting it onto Scribble? What's it like as a writer?
I think probably one of the main differences is the comments that you get back on Scribble are from your peers, from other people who are writing similar materials. So if I'm posting in the haiku group, it'll be other haiku poets. If it's in the poetry group, it's other poetry, other poets, and so on. So I think it is a different type of feedback. The engagement and the feedback that I'm going to get on Scribble is much more from my peers on Twitter. It's much more from readers, which is also not a bad thing. It's always, for me at least, it's always nice to know about the reaction that is evoked in somebody. I know that when we used to tour schools years ago, one of the big things for me was, and I remember this when I was at school myself, and it's probably off English literature, was being told that I had to sort of try and get inside the head of the poet that wrote it. So why did Keats write this? What did he mean when he wrote it? And I understand why they were doing that. They were trying to get people to understand metaphor and so on. But I think what's more important with poetry is that you take something from it, that you take a meaning from it, that it affects you in some way. I think that if somebody writes to me and they've been seen to have some kind of deep connection with the poem, it doesn't matter to me that it's not what the poem was intended, as long as they've had that reaction.
So I would agree with you, absolutely. And I think almost with poetry, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But we were talking, while we were at that poetry party, we were talking about how poetry is almost sharing an essence, and how that can be, how it's a way of imparting energy to the readers who enjoy your work.
Yeah, and it's a very raw, or can be a very raw emotion that's exposed to the page when you're writing poetry. And I tend to just take a mood and blob it onto the page. So I remember last night one of the discussions was around which poet do I probably most closely match, because I'm a miserable sod. It's probably Keats, sadly.
Well, I mean, that's not a bad legacy to follow, is it?
It isn't, but I'd probably rather be somebody a little bit more like Bryce Shelley is a little bit more chippy.
So you mentioned touring schools, and I know that this is something that you were doing. Was it to publicize your book?
Well, the way that came about originally, so my first book came out a very long time ago. Well, a very long time ago, but 13 years ago, I think, 13, 14 years ago. I then began a series of essays, poetic essays called Line Arts, and it was picked up by a publishing house, and I was very, very fortunate to work with an author who was writing a novel based on the essays. And we were very fortunate to do a little bit of touring, both educational tours and some reasonably big gigs, just going into small theatres and so on. So I would say probably the most enjoyable were the school tours, but not assemblies. Yeah, definitely not assemblies. School assemblies are terrifying, but especially at primary schools.
Yeah.
Any writers out there who gets offered an assembly at a primary school?
Don't do it.
But doing small groups of kids of any age, and also we used to have a lot of fun with the college kids. We used to be very good doing college events. So yeah, we tour, and we had various different ways when we were touring schools of imparting creativity and teaching the kids how to consider metaphor in different ways and to take the different meanings from the same word. So, for example, we might read a poem and then go around the room, but ask questions like, what colour was the lady wearing? What was the weather like? You know, sorts of questions that were a bit left field, but when they'd been picturing this in their head, they all would have seen something completely different, even though they may have taken the same metaphor or the same meaning.
Mm. Tell me more about your book. I think you missed an opportunity there to flash it at the camera.
What you mean? That book? Yeah, I mean it's quite ancient now. It's the only book that's been published with my name on it. As you know, Elizabeth, I've done a fair bit of work as a ghost author over the years, but in terms of publishing actual books with my name on, that's the only one. This actually represents the first 50 poems I ever wrote, and each poem has a really nice picture. And then if you go to the next page, you get the text. So 50 poems, 50 chapters effectively. And it's a snapshot of life through my eyes as I saw it when I was about to hit 40. Because funnily enough, my midlife crisis came very early. I had a crisis at 40 rather than at 50. 50 is like, oh, it's fine at 50. But when I was coming up to 40, I felt like my life was ending. So I basically just wrote this book. And yeah, I'd say my life has changed an awful lot since I wrote it. And I know my perception of the world and the way that I view things has changed too. But it's still, I think it's a reasonably decent way of getting to know me. There's still a fair bit of me in there.
And you mentioned being a ghostwriter. So what genres, and don't you dare say ghost stories, what genres were you writing?
Just trying to think if there were any ghost stories before. Mostly biographies. Mostly biographies, and I got to meet some very interesting people. As you know, one of the directors of our company is a former New Zealand All Black, so you get to meet some very interesting people. I did write also some novels as a ghostwriter as well, but mostly it was biographical work.
Very cool. Oh yeah. Would you like to share some of your work so that we can get to hear it from the horse's mouth?
I tell you what, I would really love to do. So last night we read a poem called "The Grass is Greener," and when I say we, what I actually mean is you. But What we actually did was we had you read it in 2 accents because you're really, really good at impressions. So actually, what might be good, just putting you on the spot here, as you put me on the spot, is we could read this together. How about you read alternate verses? So to explain to the viewers, effectively this poem is an argument between 2 people who are effectively trying to argue that their life is worse than the others, that the world has treated them so badly. And it's an observation of something that I tend to see quite often, where somebody says, "Oh, yeah, my weather's terrible." "Oh, yeah, but my weather's worse than yours." So, so I actually wrote a poem about it. But I have to say, I haven't laughed as much as I did last night when you performed this in a long time. So it seems like a very good opportunity for us to read this poem together, maybe.
I think we should do that, because I must admit I found it very difficult last night to transition between doing one accent and another. You're right, it is a bad habit. I do enjoy doing accents, and that's
a bad habit. It's a real gift.
It's not. It's
it definitely is.
It's embarrassing when they accidentally out. It's a bit like having split personality disorder, but only in terms of my speech. So yeah, okay, what we'll do one verse each. Do you want to pick an accent? I mean, you know my repertoire.
I'll do my own accent, but when I used to do this on stage, I used to sort of almost slip into a sort of really weird, almost Cockney accent. So if you sort of start picking that up, that's what it will be. But it's not on purpose. It's just for some reason this poem makes me do that. Which do you want to go first or second?
I will go first. And what am I doing? Do you want Brummy?
I think we're going to go Brummy. Yeah,
okay. So this poem is "The grass is greener. Your grass is always greener, and warmer shines your sun. For those who live on your side, the fight's already won.
Here's my glass half empty, but yours is still half full. I'm wrapped in nylon, while you're in cotton wool.
I work so hard for nothing. Your money grows on trees, and so you're always healthy, while all I do is sneeze.
You have perfect eyesight, yet glasses I must wear. Through my tinted lenses, you're so lucky, I would swear. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's such a great poem.
Okay.
Yeah, it definitely deserved another airing. Thank you. Okay, so I think I would like to choose one for you to read as well.
Okay.
I would like you to read the first poem from your book, please.
First poem from my book. Do you know what the first poem from my book is?
No, I don't. I'll be handy.
Okay, so the first 3 poems from the book are actually the title poems. So the first poem is me, the second poem is my world, and the third poem is I. So on that basis, the first poem is me. I am me. I have meaning. I am breathing, my heart beating, with eyes seeing, with touch feeling, sometimes hurting, in time healing. Now I'm laughing, moments feeling. Words I'm hearing, then I'm speaking, always sharing, memory seeking. I have meaning. I'm me.
That's brilliant. It's so succinct, and yet it has so much meaning in it. It's very cool. But your style has really changed in the years since you were published there.
Yeah, when I first, certainly with this book, I was heavily influenced by a poet from New Zealand, Calvin Fowler, who's a good friend of mine, an award-winning poet, tours a lot, and I used to go for a drink every Thursday night, and I suddenly decided that, hey, I can do that. I can't write some poetry. But he was a free verse poet, so I started with free verse, and it wasn't until I really started to dig into poetry deeper and take a general interest that I realised that I'm a big fan of the classics. of Keats, Shelley, Wordsworth, and the rest of the guys in the band. So I heard it once described. I think as a result, I started to become far more interested in classical rhythm, and also I think through potentially mostly through reading Shakespeare, I started to, that's where the poetic essays come from. So if you remember last night, I performed American News of Love, which is much more Shakespearean than in its style than a poem. It's potentially more like a scene from a play. And when I was working a lot with Lionhearts, a lot of the work we did with Lionhearts, they were actually love letters. Essays actually begin, "Dearest Lily" or "Dear Lily," or whatever. So yeah, I think that certainly the work that we did with Lionhearts is the gateway, the bridge between this work and where I've ended up with the kinds of poems that you tend to hear me read when we're on poetry nights and so on.
So where can we find more of your stuff, please?
Okay, you put me on the spot now, because me being me, and you know what I'm like, I can't actually remember my website address, so I will scramble really quickly and get it for you. You can read more if you go to author-avbarber.com and then click on the works link, and that will at least give you access to all of my Lionhearts work from years back. You can obviously read my latest work by joining Scribble, which is completely for free. Just head over to the caves, and I try to post at least something every day, so that even if it's just a haiku or just a 3x3 poem, which is that wonderful new format that Vasya come out with, I do at least try to get something out every day. So that's a good way to keep up with my latest work. There's also links to my book on my website.
And can we stick some links down below?
Please do. I thought you'd never ask.
Okay, well, there is just enough time for me to thank you for liking, subscribing, and popping that alert notification on. And don't forget, if you like this channel, don't tell me, tell your friends. I'll see you next time.